Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Guy. Well, we got a whole pile of stuff to go through here. With everything that kind of went down last week, I ended up just taking a hiatus here for the weekend. It's just... And there's more really bad, heartbreaking news, which... That's why I started this channel, is to get the truth out. And some things, I tell you, are really heartbreaking, disgusting, and embarrassing as a Canadian to have to watch. There was an ostrich that was injured due to the drones that the police were flying, that it ran into a fence and flipped over it a couple times. There's evidence that she was neglected. And trust me, I've been watching the footage and trying to keep up with this. She died a very painful, unpleasant death. And her suffering endured days upon days. This is Canada, people. I'm just so heartbroken. At the same point, we have some whales that the federal government said, hey, we're not shipping them away to China or any other country for them to be living in another display of confinement for people's amusement. So, put them down. This is the mentality of our government, people. Conrad Black had an amazing interview. I'm going to play some pieces of it. It's off of a videocaster called Leaders on the Frontier. Really great interviews. And I'm going to, of course, weave this into what's going on right now, because Carney is going to be down in the States. He is definitely fastening his knee pads, getting his elbows up so he can do what he's going to do. And Trump dropped some kind of response today. I'm going to compare that with how, well, considering Conrad Black is on a first name basis and probably within one of the top 10 contacts on Trump's phone, how he says Trump feels about this. And then we're going to kind of just take right off. Daniel Smith dropping some truths at a fireside chat. And if I have time, I'm just going to clip through a whole pile of just the typical chaos that's going on in Canada to keep you informed. Let's start off with Conrad Black.
We're just not competitive. As you said, the capital outflows here net, that is to say the amount by which capital generated in Canada is exported out and invested elsewhere, exceeds that which comes in from other countries to invest in Canada. In the last 10 years is well over $300 billion.
$300 billion.
We are being passed successively by other countries in the per capita disposable income category. So we aren't competitive, and people who aren't competitive, countries that aren't competitive, come to terrible grief if they don't pull up their socks and do better. And if Carney thinks he's going to get there with a $90 billion deficit, especially if it includes any of his nonsense about climate, then it's going to be a disaster. Now, we shouldn't prejudge. Well, I have no idea what his budget is, and I hope it's a creative, imaginative, and effective budget. But time is going by, and everyone's entitled to a honeymoon when they come in. I think that's a good thing. But he's delivering, as you said, that budget, or his Minister of Finance is on I think November 4, and that's 6 months after he came in as Prime Minister. That was the time between Pearl Harbor and the Battle of Midway, where the Japanese onslaught across the Pacific, and then the Americans pushed them back. And
Mhm.
after that, they moved steadily towards the home islands of Japan. Well, the whole world changed in that time, and the 6 months is a long time in politics.
I-
Well,
Are
we,
you
we have to
optimistic?
wait. If Carney doesn't, let me put it very directly. What appears to be this grand bargain of he'll allow a pipeline, but is talking about it being a carbon neutral pipeline, which is just a
Mhm.
ridiculous concept. We don't need pipelines to carry water from Alberta to British Columbia or Ontario. But the bargain appears to be that he'll approve a pipeline as long as there's a carbon collection and a burial of carbon up near Red Lake or something that costs $16 billion, and the federal
Mhm.
government will pay for it. Alberta won't pay any of it. I guess for someone of his, in my opinion, absurd views on the imminent danger of climate change, um, I guess that's a compromise. And if he did that, it would at least be an improvement on what we've had for the last 10 years, which was
Mhm.
essentially a war on our greatest industry and the chief engine of prosperity in this country. But let me take it one step further. If he doesn't move on a pipeline, if he doesn't take serious steps, I don't mean bureaucratic window dressing about a major projects office. That's just more bureaucracy. I mean, everyone
Mhm.
knows a pipeline's a pipeline, and it's well known how you build them. You
Mhm.
dig a space for them and put a pipe down, and if he doesn't get on with that, then in my opinion, we are going to be very soon in the position where the majority of Albertans would vote for Alberta to secede from Canada and become an independent country. And then they would make a deal with the United States, either to sell the Americans oil and gas at a reasonable price, not the knockdown price the Americans are getting now, or to go back to XL, ship from Alberta all the way to the
Mhm.
Gulf of Mexico or America, whatever you want to call it, and and then to the world. And if Alberta did that, it would be a petro state. It wouldn't need an income tax. It would have the highest standard of
Mhm.
living in the world of any country. And people, Edmonton and Calgary would become the size of Toronto, and they wouldn't have to listen to any more nonsense from Ottawa ever again. Now that's
Right.
the position we're going to be in. And by the way, if Alberta did that, Quebec would do it a month later. I mean, the leader of the Parti Québécois, which at this point is ahead in the polls for the Quebec election next year, has said that if elected, he will recognize Alberta as an independent country, even if they
Indeed.
haven't
Yes.
achieved that status.
Yeah.
I mean, the Québécois have figured out that the Albertans are not far from being as dubious about Canada's utility to them as Quebec is.
Mhm.
Now, this is
Well,
a
and don't forget
shocking
about
state for this country
Saskatchewan.
to be in. Now, maybe Carney knows all about it and has a strategy to deal with it. I hope he does, but we don't know.
Right. So you're seeing, in many respects, a significant foreshadow between Alberta, Quebec, and let's don't forget Saskatchewan, where provinces are going to be asserting their sovereignty if they can't find a pathway to prosper. I
Well, if
mean,
they're being strangled economically, frankly, they're
mhm.
right to secede. I mean, what good is Canada to them? And we, if that's the policy, I mean, and we have to be mindful of what
Mhm.
Alberta's been through. Pierre Trudeau tried to seize the profits of that industry, and Justin Trudeau's tried to shut the industry down. I mean, why should Alberta put up with that? I mean, why
Exactly.
should Canada put up with it? It's an insane policy, but it's Alberta's oil and Saskatchewan.
So the other economic fall I want to get your feedback on and perspective, Conrad, has to do with what is it again? Oh, trade. And the whole challenge of getting a trade deal with the United States of America. So you know the president, you know the administration. What do we need to do to get a trade deal and move
You
forward?
know,
Because it's this uncertainty that's
when I was
deadly to
visiting the
business
president
investment.
2 weeks ago, he said to me, "What's the state of the trade talks with Canada?" And I said, "Mr. President, I mean, you're supposed to know that. I don't know. I have nothing to do with it." I mean, I was actually
Yeah.
Can you imagine people?
That is how unimportant Carney is. He doesn't care. He's just like Trudeau. He's just like Governor Turd. In the eyes of Trump, we don't even matter. The least of his worries. And I'm going to show you why in a second.
Hoping you would tell me. He doesn't actually think about Canada that much, and that's in the hands of officials. I think, as it should be, you've got trade experts
For sure.
talking to each other, and I assume that that they're proceeding in a civilized, reasonable manner. But and we have, I think, about 75% of the trade between the two countries is governed by the treaty, and neither party's given notice of cancellation. So, we don't have it all hanging over us right now like a sword of Damocles. But the new government in Ottawa had better work diligently to get a proper agreement. And the American view is that Canada is going to lose all of its steel industry and all of its automobile industry. And now I said to him that if that was the case, then the Canadians should buy the auto factories in Canada, obviously at a very knockdown price, and make the cars in Canada for Canadians. I said, Mr.
Now, I believe this is the truth. Now, I've talked about this before. This is how Carney and the buzzards of the banking and global elite have been dealing with nations. They purposely set in legislation like they did to the resource sector. When these companies are dying, when they are so restricted that their profits drop off, they start laying people off, their shares are plummeting, these buzzards come in and scavenge off the pieces of them, slowly buying them all out, because all they have to do once they ascertain all of the power they need through owning the businesses that control the resources, they then change the legislation to suit their pocketbooks. Now this goes to the auto sector. What do they want to do? They want EVs. He didn't get rid of the EV mandate. He postponed it. It's in their interest for the Canadian auto industry to go tits up in a handbasket, because they're waiting, the buzzards that they are, to come in and pick the flesh off of all of those workers, cutting wages, cutting the amount of people they need, using robots, and then forcing Canadians to buy their vehicles. They'll have full control of the market. This is evil business. This is what Carney does. This is Goldman Sachs. This is the whole idea. The fact that Canada voted a banker, a banker as your prime minister. And we've already touched on all of the ethics violations. They don't end. Everywhere he goes, he's making money. A couple of different people had thrown into Grok and into different AIs saying, what business deals has Carney done to profit Canada? And it came up with one got 43 and the other one got 47. And the deals never benefited Canada at all. They were all tied to Brookfield and Carney's private investments. Liberals are destroying this country because all they hear is propaganda. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's dabble on to Trump today. Oh boy, Canada.
And tomorrow you're meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister. What's on the agenda for that?
Well, I guess he's going to ask about tariffs, because a lot of companies from Canada are moving into the United States. You know, everybody's moving back into the U.S., and he's probably going to be asking about tariffs. They're losing a lot of companies in Canada. They're coming into they left here. They left here 20 years ago when presidents that sat right at this desk weren't doing their job properly. They were probably good politicians, but they weren't good at business, and they allowed these companies to leave. And all they had to do is do what I'm doing right now. And, you know, I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, but it is. It's effective. We're a rich country again. We're a powerful country because, you know, I've ended 7 wars. At least half of them was because of my ability at trade and because of tariffs. If I didn't have tariffs to throw around a little bit, you would have at least 4 wars raging right now with thousands of people a day being killed that aren't happening. We've settled. You know, we settled 7. We're getting close to settling 8. That would be a big one. And that's something that could happen. But so I think he's coming probably to talk about tariffs because a lot of companies are leaving Canada to come into the U.S. And they're leaving Mexico. And by the way, they're leaving China. They're leaving all over the world to come into the U.S. Nobody's actually seen anything like it.
Would you shift your position on tariffs in response to whatever?
Well, I mean, look, my positions turned out to everybody said I'm right. They find billions of dollars that they didn't even know they had. Recently, they said they found billions of dollars, and they couldn't understand. I said, check the tariff shelf, and they come in the next hour and they said, sir, you're right. It was from the tariffs. We're a really rich country again, but more importantly, maybe influence. If I didn't have the power of tariffs, you would have at least 4 of the 7 wars raging. I use tariffs to stop wars. If you look at India and Pakistan.
Okay. And what did the Liberal Party do? Without consulting Canadians, without having a debate, without any democracy and voting on the decision in Parliament, they went behind Trump's back and said, Palestine we're recognizing them. Yep, that's it. And started sending more money to Hamas. Trump doesn't care about us when he's getting what he wants. He's getting the takeover of Canada. If all the businesses leave, how are we going to be able to afford anything? He is watching Canada self-destruct, all because of TDS, thanks to propaganda. Trump derangement syndrome. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's not our president. He's got one job. Make America great again. That's his job. All of the people that helped get him elected greased their palms. Which means what? If you haven't seen it, over the barrel. It means stop Canada from getting our exports to outside markets so that the states can hold the reins and keep us, well, as slaves to the American system. And you have a government who wants us to be, well, a third world country. This way they make record profits. This is Carney's agenda. It's the same Liberal Party that was taken over 10 years ago. They're way beyond socialist people. Carney doesn't care about us. He will purposely do whatever it takes in order for Canadian businesses that he isn't invested in to collapse so that him and all of the other global elites, through all of their numbered accounts, offshore havens, green agendas, all this, follow the money trail and you can't. They have one goal. And so does Trump. There's a battle going on for the destruction of our nation. The Liberal Party cares less than the Americans do. Think about that. Self-destruction, people. The Liberal Party doesn't care. He's going down there because if he can get anything, he knows that propaganda media will pump him up. There's an election coming. Looks like the NDP are going to keep them in power. Canada's in big trouble. And this is where Conrad was bang on the money. The West has to go. We have to go. Poilievre is now ahead in the polls. Not by much. It would be like a minority government, which would fall immediately because the NDP, the Greens, they just vote him out instantly. We're going to be battling this unproductive government back and forth for how long? For a fascist government? For this liberal fascist party? We got to go. We got to cut our ties. Canada's, like I said, we're in self-destruct. The timer's already hit 0, people. We're watching us implode in real time.
Why is Canada then seem to be pursuing still a whole set of green policies that frankly make us uncompetitive then on the energy side?
Well, the answer is
every related industry.
People sold that to Justin Trudeau, and Carney was one of the people who sold it to him. I mean, I remember him when he was governor of the Bank of England. He turned the Bank of England into an agency badgering the country about climate change, which has nothing to do with running a central bank. And then, of course, he warned Britain that there'd be grass growing in the streets of London if they left Europe, and they ignored that. And he's not well remembered in Britain. But we're waiting to see on this budget whether he has read the polls, at the least read the polls, and cynically realized he can't go ahead with such a radical energy reduction program, or even had the grace of conversion and just decided that that it's not the right policy right now. Now,
Exactly.
if he does either of those, I think we'll turn in the right direction and things will start getting better. We'll increase our energy exports and it'll all come along. It's a rich country with a talented and highly motivated workforce. There's nothing wrong with Canada that better government wouldn't solve. But if he doesn't, he's going to have a real sleigh ride.
Okay,
And
so
we're all going to suffer for it.
indeed. So just to wrap up my other question I wanted to explore with you is, what is the larger strategic play for Canada, to summarize it? I mean, obviously, we can make trade with the United States. We've got to move our own policy house in order. We need free trade in Canada. We need to get rid of that red tape so that instead of repelling capital, we attract business investment to this country. We should be the most prosperous nation in the world, darn it. So in that context, though, the larger play surely relates to security as a doesn't it, Conrad? I mean, instead of the United States making overtures to Finland to supply them with energy, Canada should be the source of that energy. It seems like we
Exactly.
are spinning our wheels when in fact we should be working with the Americans to create a secure continent, be a full NATO partner, but clearly being exporting everywhere around the world. Why can't we do this, Conrad?
We can. We can. The burning question is, does Mark Carney have the intelligence and the courage to do, frankly, a 180-degree turn on what he has been saying and what his predecessors in that Liberal government were doing, largely on his advice, or not? I mean,
You heard that, right? He knows. Carney has been the puppet master of the Liberal Party for the last 10 years. This is why businesses have been fleeing. This is why at the election, right when Carney won, over $60 billion fled our country. Now, $360 billion over the course of 10 years, and then $60 billion within 6 months of Carney taking power. Because they know They know. They know his goal. His goal is to take over all of the industries. Cut wages. You start with mass immigration. You drop wages. Then, what do? You imply all the legislation you possibly can to stop businesses from being able to get ahead. You walk in and you pick the flesh off of all of what used to be Canada. All their investors are sitting back, laughing. This is disgusting. Conrad knows exactly what's going on.
The notorious case of a complete policy turn was the Nazi-Soviet Pact. Now, Stalin and Hitler were horrible people.
Now, as always, I post all the links below. I urge you watch this whole interview. It's a fabulous interview. Conrad Black, the guy's brilliant. In the meantime, because of Trump, we're seeing, as I said, in real time, Trump and his administration and a lot of other nations are full-blown attacking because they know what's going on with the global elite. They see this takeover, the new world order. Real leaders are trying to reclaim their country's independence. And in doing so, well, the dominoes are starting to fall. So Carney's net zero banking alliances, they disband after mass exodus. Now, the Net Zero Banking Alliance, NZBA, and UN-backed initiative launched in 2021 to guide banks toward net zero emissions by 2050 has ceased operations following a significant withdrawal of numbers institutions. This all started to crumble when they literally brought into the Senate and they were discussing and they were having hearings on the global green cartel. Mark Carney is in it. The video of that is in my sister channel, Reality Revealed. I hunted it down and I found it. If you want to watch it, I urge you. It's long, but Carney's named in it. So is G. Vance and all the rest of these corporations for what they are doing. Their bribery, coercion, using the law, legislative, political influence, infiltration. These people are evil. That's when all of this started to crumble, because these people started to realize, holy shit, we could go to jail. As always, you can read the article posted below. Now, this is what happens with carbon pipelines.
A pipeline carrying carbon dioxide ruptured in Mississippi. The plume of toxic waste forced hundreds to evacuate and sent 50 people to the hospital with dizziness, seizures, some even foaming at the mouth. First responders said it was like a zombie movie.
911. She's laying on the ground and she's shaking. She's kind of drooling out of the mouth. I don't know if she's having a seizure or not. Tell me exactly what had happened. Like, I was driving and I ran into like a lot of fumes. Like, it's a lot of noise going on because I didn't know if anything was going to explode. I don't know what's going on.
Months later, victims still complained of symptoms, including stomach and lung issues and even brain fog. Right now, across the Midwest, there are at least 4 proposed carbon pipelines seeking eminent domain to force their private projects onto farmers and our communities.
What's Carney doing, people? The liberals do everything out of force. That's why they're fascist. If they really had any last roots to them that was Canadian, that had any type of diplomacy and belief in an actual democracy, they would have done it when it came to announcing Palestinian statehood. They would have had a vote in the House. But they didn't, because their own party's divided. But when you get people like Anthony Housefeather, this guy is useless. Yeah, he probably would have stood up and he probably would have voted no, I don't want to do that, which would have embarrassed the Liberal Party. So they just don't do it. Does Anthony Housefather have any real proud Judaism in him? Does he have any Canadian pride in him to walk away from this party? This party who's become so anti-Semitic in all of its actions. No, he doesn't. He sits there and votes for whatever the Liberals want to force onto people, and agrees with everything, or he just hides under his desk coloring with his crayons.
What drives me nuts is when we use taxpayer dollars like Obama's $2.2 billion solar plant in California that had to close after years of wasted money. I see solar working on somebody's home because it gets rid of the transmission lines and it can supplement their energy uses. But when you have these $2.2 billion solar plants, I mean, they just had to shut it down.
Oh, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger's pride and joy. Oh, and then you get the Fonda useless oh man, they were all on this. Oh, like seals. In the meantime, they were blowing billions of dollars on this place. It wasn't working from the start. It never functioned to how they promised it was going to. This is what Carney wants to push on us.
Well, yeah, Google's Ivanpah plant was a disaster from the start. I've been writing about this since 2014 when it opened. It's really just an inefficient gas plant masquerading as a solar plant. It has outdated technology now. It has killed tens of thousands of birds who, when they fly through the field of mirrors, just literally burn. They're called streamers. And it's just another example of green junk. All this stuff is green.
And by the way, we really don't know how many birds. The largest maintenance of these types of facilities are the cleanup crews. And the number one default on why they have to repair these mirrors is from what he called the streamers. They some call them solar phoenixes. They're birds. Millions upon millions of birds that die. They hit that beam, they don't see it, they go poof. They suffer unbearable pain and plummet to their demise. And what do they hit? They hit the mirrors. This whole thing is so inhumane.
Junk. The Eiffel Tower sized offshore wind turbines, Ivanpah, even the solar on homes. Taxpayers have to pay for that. That stuff it takes 20 to 30 years for those solar panels to pay off, and taxpayers are paying for that.
And environmentalism shouldn't be a dirty word, because people do care. You know, conservatives are conservationists, and they actually care about the wildlife. And these Democrats and these liberals, they don't care about wildlife. They don't care about like preserving nature. They only care about control and power and the grift, because Ivanpah was called a prolific executioner of wildlife, and it's a travesty.
Yeah. And then you get Canada.
But today we learned that a hen by the name of Spirit, who's been of grave concern to the farmers who are forbidden from caring for her, has lost her life under the care of the CFIA. Today I speak with co-owner of Universal Ostrich Farms, Dave Belinsky, as well as one of the spokespersons for the farm, Jeff Gaudry. All right, some of you saw my very emotional video. Quite frankly, I am pissed about what I saw yesterday. Spirit, the hen who had been injured, has apparently been neglected by the CFIA. And we have some breaking news today here. Dave, tell us.
They have admitted that Spirit is no longer here. Spirit has been a hen with our group for many, many years. And we do not know if she died of naturally or if they put her down. We'll have a full family announcement here shortly with the whole history of what's going on with Spirit.
This is animal cruelty. She had zero care. The videos that I've watched over the course of the last few days, I've worked with wildlife. Elk, bison, ostrich, fallow deer, all of them. I worked with provincial vets and helped them. So I have lots of experience in this, and I learned from some of the best. This is a chargeable offense. What they have done, or I'll word it better, what they didn't do, the neglect on this animal was barbaric. It was beyond cruel. And as somebody who's worked with wild animals, as well with domestic, because I care for them today, I'm an animal fanatic. I love all creatures. It's who I am. There are things that you just do because you're human. Then there are things that you know how to do better because you're educated. Then there are things where you must do because not only do you know better, are you educated, but you have all of the available resources at your fingertips, and it is in your job description to do. These people failed on all three. Videos in the link. If you're any bit of an animal lover, just it's heartbreaking. I'm going to scroll ahead a little bit further here, and I believe she's absolutely correct.
So I'm calling on the RCMP to do their job as well and not allow an organization to hide behind their badges and hide behind their tape and allow them to commit acts of animal cruelty.
Now, did you notice the poll he had? They've been going around with these selfie sticks and they've been recording everybody's faces that are there, taking all of the license plates down. What has any of these people got to do with the mandate put at hand on this farm? This is a fascist government setting protocol down to their new Gestapo to follow these orders, and we want to know everybody. This is how they know who to debank, who to prosecute, who to put into courts for years and years and years using taxpayers' dollars to bankrupt them, to silence them. This is what you get from a socialist, a communist, a fascist government. There's no reason for them to be going around recording everybody's faces for taking all of the license plates. No reason at all. Welcome to the Liberal Party.
And they should be charged. We're calling on Courtney Fotheringham and Troy Bork and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to be charged for animal cruelty. We have the evidence. There should be a full investigation done on this. This should not be just left alone. They have stated that she had underlying health issues, but the mainstream media is not reporting that she didn't have underlying health issues. She had an injury she was healed from. Yes. She was doing great. We called her Spirit. She had such a strong spirit. spirit. And then to watch what everybody's missing is that her injuries that she just succumbed to were the drones that were flying extremely low on the Monday from the RCMP. She flipped a fence twice, and she was injured. So she needed her anti-inflammatories. She needed to be tubed. We needed to monitor that she was drinking and eating. And that is when her health declined, was when the drones flipped her over a fence twice. It was not declining because of anything else, an underlying health conditions. There was an injury. And
Can't watch any more of that. I'm sorry, everybody, but yeah. Now, she's absolutely correct. These people need to be fired. They need to be charged. They need to be held to account. They have video evidence that the bird was neglected. Now, I've reached out and I've had no reply. I'm just a small guy, and because I put truth, sorry, just the truth, just the facts, I'm censored. So my channel's having a hard time growing. I get nailed all the time. But if I had a lot more followers, maybe Elon would have got back to me, because I have been trying to get through to him. Canada needs help. We're all broke. Everybody's afraid of the government, but there are those of us out there who are not. If I had the money, I would have been out there doing my show from inside of the camper weeks ago, a month ago. We need a big crane. We need a zoom boom. Not a 30-foot scissor lift. I'm talking like a 60, 70, 80-foot lift. So that we can video everything that's going on and hold the government liable and accountable for what they are doing to these animals and what they're doing to the farmers, to these ranchers. Watching them have to endure the pain of seeing their animals pass away. It's not to die in such painful agony. Unbelievable. But oh, don't worry. Our government
is asking the federal government for financial support to care for the last captive whales in Canada. The park says without aid, it will be forced to euthanize the remaining 30 beluga whales in its possession. Earlier, Ottawa rejected Marineland's request to export the whales to an aquarium in China. Tricia is looking into this for us this morning. So let's talk about what Marineland is asking of the federal government. What are they saying right now?
Well, they're looking for some financial support at this point, Marianne. These 30 belugas are obviously large animals to house and feed. Sources have told CBC News that it's a cost of about $2 million a month. So now the company says it's rapidly running out of money and urgently needs financial support from the federal government. And they have given them a deadline of October 7th, where Marineland says it will then face the devastating decision of euthanasia. Now, all this information is coming from a letter that our CBC colleagues in Ottawa were able to take a look at on Friday. It was sent to Fisheries Minister Joanne Thompson. It went on to say the gravity of the funding crisis at Marineland cannot be overstated. Any further delay jeopardizes the welfare and security of the whales, and we fear we are running out of time. As you mentioned, Marianne, this comes just days after the minister had denied Marineland's request for those export permits to send them to a theme park in China. Now, Marineland says euthanizing the whales will be a direct consequence of the minister's decision to deny those export permits. The reason they need those permits now, interesting to note, there was a law passed in 2019, and now it bans keeping whales, dolphins, and porpoises for breeding or entertainment purposes in Canada, which obviously had really negative impacts on the company's business model as well. So now the minister has said she's open to issuing export permits, but she was not okay with this setup because the animals would still be kept in captivity and used for entertainment purposes. Now, Marineland has begun selling off some of its equipment and amusement rides, but they have not responded to multiple requests for comment at this point, Marianne.
And Marineland has been under investigation by the province for quite some time now. We know that animal welfare falls under Ontario law. So what is the provincial government doing here?
Yeah, that's right. The minister also met with some officials from Ontario when she was here this week. Ontario Premier Doug Ford did talk about it. Here's a bit from what he had to say.
It's terrible. And you put 30 whales in an acre. Like, give me a break. Like, they need to do a better job down at Marineland. We want them to survive. And if they don't, well, federal government has to answer on that one.
And now we also have heard from the World Action Protection Canada group, and they're saying holding the government of Canada hostage for making the right decision is grotesque manipulation. Marineland has lost all moral and ethical credibility to continue holding ownership of any animal. We are calling on the government of Ontario to immediately step in. One home that has been talked about by advocates would be a sanctuary off the coast of Nova Scotia. That project has stalled, though, but the minister has said she's open to discussions about the sanctuary, but stresses that it is early days at this point, Mary.
So this is what enablers do. This is the stupidity of enablers. The liberal party, this new cult. This is their logic. Well, we'll just ban it because it's inhumane. Well, okay, I agree. 30 whales in an acre. That's, yeah, okay. But instead of just banning any new incarceration or capture of whales and allowing this company time, because you got to remember, this crushed so fast because of that rule. Hundreds of jobs were lost. Poof. Money, capital, taxes lost. Poof. Who's caring for these animals? Slowly the care starts to fall in disrepair. Poof. They didn't even give time. They just forced this through. No, look at us. We're goody goodies. And this is the way it's going to be. And instead, well, we're going to build an animal sanctuary. Yeah, we're going to build a place for all these beautiful whales so they can be held captive. So people can go see them for free. But it'll be a bigger pond of water. Yeah. And the taxpayers will have to pay for it. Yeah. And then what? Evil begets evil. Stupidity, well, begets stupidity. Now, I agree. 30 whales. An acre. Hello. Like I said, I love life. That's just cruel. So, okay, let's ban that. But how about we allow them the ability to send these animals to other countries to live out their lives? How about we do it in an ethical way, giving this facility time to stay open and run and slowly try to shift over from whales into something different, not because they have the facilities. No. Crush, hammer, destroy, stand on top of the burning pile and say, look at us. We're superior because we did this. This is disgusting. And again, you force all of this down onto a province. Canada, we're not a serious country. We become the most barbaric totalitarian state. And now MAID is being like, they're boosting, saying on how this is great. So people are going in and they're ending their life because they're so miserable. They can't afford to leave the country. They're married to the socialist system that most of them voted all their lives without knowing because of propaganda, thinking, oh, this is good. And now they can't get out. And the only option they have, because they can't get the health care, because our health care sucks, they can't get the amenities. They can't get the wheelchair ramps. They can't get the necessities needed because it's all broken and sucks. Where's the only way out? So they go to MAID and they end their life, and then the government harvests their body parts and is bragging about how this is a good thing. Oh, this heart, it's great. Look, it's in beautiful shape. It's only broken because of, well, you know, it didn't want to live in Canada anymore, but we wouldn't allow it to leave or give it the necessity or the ability to leave. But here, we're going to put this into another person, and we're going to cheer and be all grateful about this so that that person can now start paying taxes. And maybe in 10 years, when there's future problems and they don't have the health care to support that new heart, or give you the amenities and the necessities. But don't worry, there's MAID. And maybe if that heart's good enough, we'll have a heart that was double transplanted. It saved 2 lives. They're so busy looking at this like they're saving lives, they're not aware they're the reason the first person committed his own demise. Canada. Oh my God, we are so broken.
After 56 years of shaping futures in Orillia and Muskoka, Georgian College will be shutting down both campuses. For more on the impending closure, we turn to CTV's Mike Lang tonight. Mike, do we know exactly what the impact will be?
Well, Sarah, the students and staff I spoke with this morning said they were shocked when they first found out about the closures, but at the same time, the college's CEO said that it was the right decision for the long-term sustainability of the college and the success of its students.
Save our school! Save our school!
On Friday morning, nearly 1,600 Georgian College staff and students in Orillia and Muskoka were informed that their classrooms will soon be empty permanently. 30 students in Muskoka, 1,310 in Orillia, and 230 support staff impacted.
This is my home. These are my family.
Keep voting Liberal and NDP, people. This is what you're going to see.
Provincial and federal politicians are demanding answers today into how China got the deal to build BC Ferry's new vessels after a leaked report that we first told you about last night showed there was a plan to build the ships locally that governments ignored. For more, let's bring in Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature. Rob, you first outlined this story for us last night based on that leaked report. What has the reaction been today?
Well, Stacey, outrage from the opposition parties, but also the organized labor sector today to learn that C-SPAN, the province's largest shipyard, had a proposal to phase in construction of those new BC Ferries. Ships would have generated $1 billion for the economy and 10,000 jobs. It gave the plan to government 2 years ago, and nobody did anything about it. The Conservatives, federally and provincially today, demanding answers both on how the BC government failed to force ferries to put a premium on local jobs and economic benefit in the tendering process, like the report recommended, and why Ottawa is still offering a $1 billion taxpayer-backed low-interest loan to do business with China rather than using that to create a maritime shipbuilding sector here. In both cases, critics say the government should have followed the proposal in the report to phase in construction of ships 2 to 4 in BC and full construction for another 4 ships after that.
These vessels can be done in part in another country and finished here, or they could all be done here. So this is where Mark Carney and David Eby need to actually sit down and have a serious discussion about shipbuilding in this country and whether or not they're going to live up to their rhetoric, because we have a whole generation of shipbuilders that could benefit from this and the employment that it would offer in British Columbia or throughout the country. We know that we can do this. We had 2 shipyards, both Davie as well as C-SPAN, express interest in this. But when the moment they saw the RFP from BC Ferries, they knew the fix was in.
David Eby and this government looked British Columbians in the eyes and completely lied to them, said there was no way. There was a way. They just needed the political will, and they failed British Columbians at a time where we need jobs.
The BC government, which got this report 2 years ago, ignored it and then expressed disappointment when the contract went to China, today said it is reading the report. Here's Mike Farnworth.
I've heard about this report, and I'm reviewing that report. Am I disappointed that there's not more, that they aren't being built here? Of course I am. That's also why we want to work with the federal government and the industry to find ways in which we can get ferries built. But the reality is waiting, a phased approach, is not what ferry passengers in this province expect or want. They want ferries now. That's what the decision that BC Ferries has made.
The BC Ferry and Marine Workers Union, the BC Building Trades, both out today saying in statements that this proves ferries should and could have built in BC. It was a failure of political leadership to not make that happen. And both saying that BC shipyards never had a chance, though, against low-cost, low human rights records of countries like China. Another twist in the story, this report here had been requested by the House of Commons and their Federal Transportation Committee from BC Ferries, which did not provide it, and the committee now questioning why that was withheld by BC Ferries. Lots continue to happen.
We know why. We know absolutely why. Because the Liberal Party has been taken over, mostly by China. China is the pusher of this whole Green New Deal because it's benefiting them. They're using greedy, evil elitists that are making billions of dollars of profit off of this. They don't care about you. They don't care. All they care about is their pocketbooks. I am going to end up doing probably a 3 or 4 part series. I have got piles that I've been saving. I just need the time. Exposing this whole carbon lie. It's all a lie, people. You've been brainwashed. This is for profit. It has zilch, nada to do with environmental policy. It's greed. It's all greed. EB is just as corrupt. You can thank Sam Cooper for exposing this. He's been doing it forever. Since he first started writing down and becoming a journalist. What he's exposed that the mainstream media won't show you is just disgusting. The Liberals would have had their butts handed to them on a silver platter, and we would have been slamming the door on them as we booted them out. If propaganda, the legacy media, did their job. But they don't, because they don't care about you either. And by the way, pay attention. They're going to be doing a lot of shuffling. You're going to see a bunch of new hosts because they're trying to change their image. There's an election coming. They're trying to give that false look of trust all over. So they got to get rid of all the people that have been caught lying, which is everybody, and they're going to start replacing them. So watch carefully. They're going to start shuffling. Oh yeah, they're going to do the whole DEI thing. Oh yeah, sell propaganda. Ready? Are you ready? Get the ball. Canada, the drug shipping capital of the world. Well, largest meth seizure in New Zealand history arrived in maple syrup bottles from Vancouver. 3 men were sentenced in Auckland's High Court this week for their role in receiving the largest methamphetamine seizure ever recorded at New Zealand's border, which arrived from, drumroll, David Eby's Vancouver port. Concealed in maple syrup bottles, customs officers intercepted 713.8 kilograms of the drug in January 2023, enough for roughly 35 million doses, and calculated to equate to New Zealand 800 million in drug harms. The shipment, stacked on 18 pallets and disguised as 4-liter syrup jugs, was routed through a global node for Chinese chemical precursor trafficking and synthetic drug production. Again, I post all the links. Read it over. This is just yet another, just more proof that mainstream doesn't want the people to know. These are the people who are getting EB elected. These are the reasons why BC Ferries is using China, not Canada. And you got to remember, it's much deeper than that, because it also crushes another industry, allowing for the buzzards to come in and give themselves the ability to buy these shipyards at discount prices and take them over. And then guess what? We'll be building ships again with more robots, less workers, and way less pay. Wake up, Canada. Wake up.
Robbie Justison's home, where he's lived all his life, is barely recognizable. The 23-year-old was working from his house on Saturday when a stranger holding a gun began banging on the back door of the house. Justison tried screaming at him to scare him off.
I had the gun pointed at me, screaming at me, open the expletive door, and he basically started beating on the door again. Very obviously was committed to getting in the house, and I took off running, came out this door down here, and as I took off running, I heard the glass shatter, and at that point I knew he was in the house.
Justison ran to a neighbor's house, powerless as he watched the chaos unfolding from a distance. Home security camera footage provided to Global News from Justison shows a man pouring gasoline all over the house and on Justison's car before a fire is set.
The car exploded, so we heard that, saw the big puff of black smoke come over the sky, and just heard gunshots over and over again. Was hoping eventually that one of them would be the last one to be over, but it took a little longer for that to happen.
According to the RCMP, a man is alleged to have robbed the nearby RBC Bank with a firearm before fleeing to Justison's home. After exchanging gunshots with the RCMP, police say he lit the house and car on fire and was shot by an officer while allegedly attempting to flee. He died at the scene, and the Serious Incident Response Team is now investigating how police handled the deadly incident.
Now, Conservatives tried to pass some legislation. And guess what? The Liberals, they don't care about you. They don't care. They need the fourth, tool. First, you gotta have fear, hate, and division. Then, once you get those fires burning, you throw a great big full tank of chaos. Toronto Police Association. We are disappointed by the vote in the House of Commons regarding Bill C-242, jail not bail, but are hopeful the federal Liberals under PM Carney will do the right thing and step up with their own legislation. It doesn't matter how it gets done, it just needs to be done now. We have made recommendations in person and in writing. We have presented at standing committees. We have made public pleas for change that will keep our members and communities safe. This is not time for politics. It's time to get it done. Our members and the public deserve better. Almost every police organization backed the Conservatives during the election. Mainstream hid it from the public. Just as they hide all of this chaos, the deaths, the nasty things happening to women and children. All record highs. We have surpassed the United States in violent crime. Man, I'm telling you, the Liberals, they packed it all up, put it in a cannon, and said, if we're going to break records, let's break it good, and launched us into outer space. They didn't even aim for the stratosphere, man. They went straight for Neptune. Record suicide, homelessness, starvation, poverty, overdoses, suicide, violent crime, trafficking, drugs, illegal guns, home invasion, all it took was 10 years. All it took was 10 years. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like, share, and subscribe. As always, everything is in the description. I always encourage you, hey man, you want the whole story? I'm out there hunting for it to try and put it all together for a show, but it's all down there. It's all down there. I'm currently looking for that actual document that was written and hidden from anybody seeing it about the BC ferry deal. I'm going to find that document, and again, I will have that posted on a later episode, and probably backtrack and post it on this one too when I find it, so that future watchers will be able to go, oh, maybe it's on there now. Scroll down, click on it, and actually see how sold out EB, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Greens are. They're passing socialism. They blew socialism by a long time ago. When you start pulling your own candidates in order to stop another political party who just wants to take Canada back to a better life where we were, that tells you something right there. Until next time, guys, I'm Alias Tagay. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.